People often say that family is a safe harbor. They forget to mention that a harbor is also where ships are dismantled for parts. My name is Lena Hart. I am 35 years old, and if you are listening to this recording, it means I've escaped, or maybe I'm dead. Either way, you need to know the truth about the $15 million. You need to know how a business I built from nothing became the weapon that tore my life apart. It ends, or perhaps it begins, in a cold, windowless room inside the Denver FBI field office. The air smelled of stale coffee and industrial cleaner. Across the metal table, Agent Miller looked at me with the tired patience of a man who had heard every lie in the book. He slid a photo across the steel surface. "Miss Hart," he said, tapping the image of a document, "we can sit here all day, or you can tell me why your digital signature is all over the loan documents for the Phoenix Mirage project. That is fraud, Lena. Wire fraud, bank fraud, take your pick." I looked at the paper. It was an authorization for a commercial loan, authenticated by the IP address of my agency, Heartline Digital, a company with $5.2 million in annual revenue, a company I had built with my own blood and sweat for 12 years. "I've told you," I said, my voice sounding foreign in the small room. "That isn't my signature." Miller leaned back, crossing his arms. "It was signed 3 months ago. You were the CEO. Your mother, Evelyn, is the legal owner on paper. Don't tell me you didn't know what she was doing." "I knew what she was doing," I replied, meeting his gaze. "I just didn't know who she was willing to sell to do it." Miller scoffed. "So who benefits? Your stepfather, Victor? Your sister?" I paused, letting the hum of the ventilation system fill the silence. "Agent Miller, do you have siblings? Is that relevant?" "It is," I said, "because to understand this crime, you don't need a master's degree in finance. You need to understand sacrifice. You need to understand what happens when a family decides that one child is the statue and the other is just the stone." To explain how I ended up in that interrogation room, we have to go back. Back to the night the ground fell out from under me. 3 months ago, my life was perfect, or at least the version of it that I showed the world was. I was sitting in my office in downtown Denver, looking out at the city lights through the glass walls of Heartline Digital. We had 30 employees, clients in San Francisco and New York, and a reputation for turning boring tech startups into household names. I was buried in a launch strategy for a climate tech client when my phone rang. It was my mother, Evelyn. "Lena, honey," she said, her voice carrying that frantic, breathless tone she always used when she wanted something. "Are you free tonight? Your father and I want to take you to dinner. Rachel's flying in from Chicago." My stomach tightened. Rachel, my older sister, never flew in without a reason. Rachel was the golden child. The one who got the new clothes while I got the hand-me-downs. The one whose minor inconveniences were treated like national emergencies, while I was told to figure it out. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "Is it the kids?" "Everyone is fine," Mom said quickly. "We just need to talk. About the future. We reserved a table at Luca's. 7 o'clock. Don't be late. Victor will be there too." Victor? My new stepfather? A real estate developer from Phoenix who wore watches that cost more than my car and talked about leverage as if it were a religious concept. He had married my mother a year ago, and ever since he'd been circling my business like a shark smelling blood in the water. +1, I agreed to go. I didn't know it then, but I was walking into an ambush. The restaurant was nice, white tablecloths, soft jazz, the kind of place where people celebrated anniversaries, not betrayals. We sat at a round table. My dad, Thomas, looked at his menu, refusing to make eye contact with me. Rachel was texting under the table, looking exhausted and smug all at once. We made small talk for 20 minutes. Victor bragged about a new development in Arizona, something about turning desert sand into gold. I nodded politely, checking my watch, thinking about the slide deck I needed to finish. Then, the moment arrived. My mom cleared her throat and placed a thick navy blue folder on the table, right between the wine glasses. "Lena," she started, putting on her bank manager voice, "we've been doing some estate planning, succession planning, making sure everyone is taken care of." For a split second, I felt a surge of hope. I thought she was finally going to transfer the company to me legally. For 12 years, Heartline had technically been in her name because she had the credit score when I was 22. But I was the one who worked the all-nighters. I was the one who built it. "That's great, Mom," I said. "I've been meaning to talk to you about formalizing the ownership transfer." Evelyn smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She turned to Rachel. "Actually, we've decided that Rachel will take over Heartline." The words hung in the air, heavy and absurd. I felt a buzzing in my ears. "What?" "It makes sense, Lena," my dad chimed in, finally looking up. He sounded rehearsed. "Rachel has her MBA, she has management experience, and, well, she has 3 kids. She needs the stability." I looked at Rachel. She was trying to hide a smirk behind her wine glass. "You want to give my company to Rachel?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. "Rachel, who thinks SEO is a streaming service?" "You'll work under her," Mom added quickly, as if that was a consolation prize. "You're the creative genius, Lena. We aren't taking that away. You'll be the COO. Rachel will handle the big picture. She deserves it more. She has a family to support." There it was, the sentence that had defined my entire life. She has kids. My 12 years of risk, stress, and payroll were weighed against the fact that Rachel had procreated and I hadn't. Victor leaned forward, his gold watch glinting in the candlelight. "It's a smart financial move, Lena. Combined with my real estate portfolio, Rachel's ownership strengthens the family's asset class. You're single. You're flexible. You'll be fine." I looked at the folder. I looked at the people who were supposed to protect me. And I realized they didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as a resource, an employee they could exploit because we shared DNA. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "So," I said, pushing my chair back, "that's the deal? I build it, she takes it?" "It's not taking it," Rachel said, her voice high and defensive. "It's family business." "You're right," I said, standing up. "It is business." "Sit down, Lena," Mom hissed. "You are making a scene." "No, Mom. I'm making a decision." I looked at them one last time. "If you think Rachel deserves it so much, she can run it, all of it, without me." "You can't just leave," my dad said, panic finally creeping into his voice. "The clients, the team." "Rachel has an MBA," I said, dropping my napkin on the untouched plate of pasta. "She'll figure it out." I walked out of that restaurant without looking back. I walked out into the cool Denver night, leaving my dessert, my family, and 12 years of my life behind at table 4. But as I drove away, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, I didn't go home. A cold realization washed over me. Mom had mentioned asset class and collateral. She had been at my office earlier that day for a routine check. Why? I turned my car around and headed straight back to the Heartline office. I still had my keycard. I still had my admin access. And I had a terrible feeling that losing the company was about to be the least of my problems. What I was about to find in the accounting server wouldn't just end my career. It was going to turn me into a fugitive. The drive back to the office was a blur of highway lights and shallow breaths. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Denver at night usually felt peaceful to me, a grid of gold glowing against the black silhouette of the Rockies. But tonight, it looked like a circuit board that was about to short out. I pulled into the parking garage of the Heartline building. It was empty, save for the sleepy security guard at the front desk, who waved me through without looking up from his phone. He didn't know I had just been fired by my own mother. He didn't know I was technically trespassing. The elevator ride to the 14th floor felt like it took an hour. When the doors slid open, the silence of the office hit me. Usually, this place hummed with energy. Slack notifications pinging, keyboards clacking, the low murmur of strategy calls. Now it was a graveyard of monitors and ergonomic chairs. I walked straight to my glass-walled office, but I didn't sit at my desk. Instead, I went to the server room. Heartline was a digital agency, but my mother was old-fashioned. She insisted on keeping physical backups of sensitive financial data on a local server, a black box that sat humming in a climate-controlled closet. She thought it was safer than the cloud. Ironically, that paranoia was about to be my salvation. I logged in. My admin credentials still worked. "Thank you, Rachel, for being too incompetent to revoke my access immediately," I thought. I bypassed the creative folders and went straight to the directory labeled admin_finance. I sorted by date modified. There it was, a folder created at 4 p.m. that afternoon, the same time my mother had been visiting the office. The folder was named Phoenix_M_funding. I opened it and my world tilted on its axis. It wasn't just a loan, it was a massacre. Victor hadn't just borrowed money to build his luxury condos. He had leveraged Heartline Digital as the primary guarantor for a mezzanine loan of $15 million. The terms were predatory: high interest, short repayment window, and a clause that stated if the Phoenix development missed a single milestone, the lender had the right to seize Heartline's assets. Liquidated damages, I whispered, reading the legalese on page 42. They weren't just betting on Victor's success. They were betting the house. My house. But that wasn't the worst part. I scrolled to the signature page, my breath caught in my throat. There, above the line labeled Elena Hart, Chief Executive Officer, was my signature. It was perfect. The loop of the L, the sharp cross of the T. It was identical to the digital stamp I used for internal memos and client contracts. But I had never seen this document before in my life. I felt a cold sweat prickle down my spine. This wasn't just a family betrayal anymore. This was a felony. If Victor defaulted, and looking at the wildly optimistic projections for Mirage Heights, he absolutely would. The bank wouldn't just take the company. They would come for me. I was the signatory. I would be the one facing the FBI for securing a loan under false pretenses. My mother hadn't just given my company to Rachel. She had framed me to take the fall for Victor's gambling addiction. For a moment, I wanted to vomit. I wanted to curl up under the desk and cry until the sun came up. But then I looked at the security camera blinking in the corner of the room, a red eye watching me. No, I told myself, you don't get to cry. Not yet. I pulled an encrypted hard drive from my bag, my doomsday drive that I kept for catastrophic system failures. I plugged it in. I didn't steal money. I didn't touch the bank accounts. That would be theft, and I needed to be cleaner than them. Instead, I stole the only thing that actually mattered, the intelligence. I initiated a copy of the entire client_relations database, every email, every phone number, every note about a client's kid's birthday or their preferred coffee order. Then I copied the strategy playbooks, the proprietary workflows I had developed over a decade. These were the recipes for our secret sauce, the step-by-step guides on how we executed campaigns that no other agency could replicate. The progress bar crawled across the screen, 20%, 45%. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Rachel. Don't be dramatic. Come to the office tomorrow at 9. We have a transition meeting. Mom is really upset. I stared at the screen. Mom is upset. The audacity was almost impressive. 80%, 95%. Complete. I ejected the drive, but I wasn't done. I opened the strategy_playbooks folder on the main server, the only copy Rachel and the team knew how to access. I didn't delete it. That would look like sabotage. Instead, I corrupted the file paths. I broke the links between the master documents and the templates. To the untrained eye, the files were still there, but when they tried to open them, they would get nothing but error messages. It was a petty move, maybe. Or maybe it was a failsafe. If they wanted to run my ship, they better know how to build the engine. I stood up, the hard drive cold and heavy in my pocket. I walked back to my desk and opened my laptop one last time. I drafted an email. I didn't CC my parents. I didn't CC Rachel. I addressed it to the entire company alias. Subject, resignation team, effective immediately. I am resigning from my position as CEO of Heartline Digital. Ownership has decided to move in a new direction under the leadership of Rachel Hart. I have left all current project files on the shared drive. It has been an honor building this with you. Good luck, Lena. I hovered my finger over the enter key. I looked around the office one last time. The potted plant I'd bought when we landed our first six-figure contract. The award on the shelf. The picture of the team from last Christmas. I hit send. Then, I wiped my laptop to factory settings, placed it gently on the desk, and walked out of the glass cage. As the elevator descended, I checked my bank app. I had $450,000 in savings and liquid assets. It was enough to run, enough to start over. But I wasn't just running away. I was moving to high ground. The war had started. And the first shot had just been fired. The next morning, I didn't wake up to an alarm. I woke up to a siege. My phone, lying face down on the nightstand, was vibrating so constantly it sounded like an angry hornet. 37 missed calls, 14 voicemails, a string of text messages that scrolled like a ticker tape of the 5 stages of grief. Mom, 8:02 a.m. Lena, where are you? The team is asking questions. Dad, 8:15 a.m. Pick up the phone, you're overreacting. Rachel, 8:45 a.m. I can't open the strategy drive. What did you do? Call me now. Victor, 9:30 a.m. This is childish. We have a bank meeting on Thursday. You need to be there to explain the projections. I didn't answer. I didn't delete them either. I screenshotted every single one. In the world of forensic accounting, timestamps are ammunition. I made coffee, strong, black, and sat on the floor of my living room, surrounded by the morning sun. For the first time in 12 years, I didn't have a stand-up meeting. I didn't have a crisis to manage. I was unemployed, and I was terrifyingly free. By noon, I was sitting in the office of Veronica Kinsley, a corporate attorney who had a reputation for being a shark in a skirt. I had scraped together a retainer from my savings. I needed a shark. Let me get this straight, Veronica said, looking at the printout of the loan document I had stolen the night before. She took off her glasses. Your mother and stepfather took out a $15 million mezzanine loan against the company's future receivables, forged your signature as the guarantor, and then fired you? Essentially, I said. And you have the original digital logs proving you were nowhere near the signing device? I was in San Francisco pitching a client. I have the flight records and the Uber receipts. Veronica let out a low whistle. Okay, listen to me very closely, Lena. You are not to speak to them, not a word. If you acknowledge that debt, they might try to argue implied consent. We are going to draft an affidavit of forgery, notarize it, and lock it in a safe. We won't file it yet. We'll keep it as your nuclear option. Why not file it now? I asked. Because, she smiled, a razor-sharp expression. If we file now, the bank calls the loan immediately. The company implodes instantly. You want to get your clients out first. You need time to build your life raft before the ship sinks. She was right. I didn't just want to survive. I wanted to win. 2 weeks later, Bright North Studio was born. It wasn't glamorous. There were no glass walls or espresso machines. I rented a small industrial space in the tech center, a shared office with cheap IKEA desks and a view of a parking lot. It smelled of drywall and ambition. I registered the LLC solely in my name. No partners, no family trust, just me. Then I started making the calls. I didn't steal the clients. I didn't have to. I just told them the truth, or at least the professional version of it. There's been a change in ownership at Heartline, I told the CEO of a solar energy startup I had worked with for 5 years. I've decided to launch my own dedicated agency. I'd love to keep working with you, but I understand if you need to stay with the legacy team. Wait, he said. You're leaving? Who's running the account? Rachel Hart is the new lead. There was a long silence on the other end. The sister? The one who asked me if Java was a type of coffee during the Christmas party? That's her. Send me the contract, Lena. I'm coming with you. One by one they came. Not all of them. Some were locked in long-term retainers, but the ones who mattered, the innovators, the ones who bought me, not the logo on the door. Meanwhile, across town, the silence I had left behind at Heartline was beginning to scream. I still had friends on the inside, designers and copywriters I had hired and mentored. They became my eyes and ears. Through encrypted messages, I watched the slow-motion car crash. It started with the strategy playbooks. Rachel, eager to prove she was in charge, called an all-hands meeting to announce a pivot. She tried to pull up the master workflow for a massive campaign. She clicked the folder. Error 404. Path not found. She clicked the backup. Corrupted file. Panic set in. She demanded the IT guy fix it. He couldn't. The ghost in the machine I had left behind wasn't a virus. It was simply a complex filing structure that required a specific key to navigate, a key that only existed in my head. Without the playbooks, the team was flying blind. Deadlines were missed. The quality of the creative work nosedived. Then came the culture shift. Victor started showing up at the office. He wasn't interested in the work. He was interested in the cash flow. He cut the free lunches. He canceled the software subscriptions he deemed unnecessary. Tools the designers needed to actually do their jobs. It's like a morgue in here, a former copywriter texted me. Rachel locks herself in her office. Victor is yelling about burn rate, and your mom just walks around smiling like everything is fine. I felt a pang of guilt reading those messages. These were my people, but I couldn't save them. Not yet. The breaking point came at the 2-month mark. I was late at the Bright North office, unpacking a box of books, when the door opened. I froze. It wasn't a client. It was Marcus, my lead developer from Heartline, and behind him was Sarah, my head of strategy. They were holding boxes of their own personal belongings. "We quit," Marcus said simply. "They tried to make us sign a non-compete today," Sarah added, looking exhausted. "Rachel said we couldn't leave. Victor threatened to sue us." "And?" I asked. Sarah dropped her box on the floor and grinned. "We told them to check the labor laws in Colorado, and then we walked out." I looked at them, tired, scared, but standing there in my tiny, unfinished office. "I can't pay you what you were making," I warned them. "Not for a few months. It's going to be ramen noodles and folding chairs." "We didn't work for the money, Lena," Marcus said. "We worked for the vision. Heartline is dead. It's just a zombie now, walking around waiting to fall over." We ordered pizza that night. We sat on the floor, mapping out plans on a whiteboard I had dragged in from the hallway. For the first time in months, I laughed, a real laugh, but the storm wasn't over. It was just gathering strength. 3 months after the dinner, the inevitable happened. The Mirage Heights project in Phoenix hit a snag. A permit issue, a delay. The bank demanded a liquidity update. They looked at Heartline's numbers. They saw the client exodus. They saw the revenue dropping like a stone. The $15 million loan was about to trigger a default clause. And that was when my phone rang again. It wasn't a text this time. It was a call from my mother. I stared at the screen. The name Mom flashed innocently. I knew why she was calling. The money was drying up. The walls were closing in. They didn't just want me back to fix the work. They needed me back to be the scapegoat for the bank. I took a deep breath. I looked at Sarah and Marcus, who were busy arguing about a font choice in the corner. I looked at the little empire I was building, clean, honest, and mine. I slid my thumb across the screen. "Hello, Mother," I said. "Lena!" She sounded breathless, her voice tight with a panic she was trying desperately to hide. "We need to talk. Can you meet us? It's an emergency." "I'm busy," I said coolly. "Please," she cracked. "Your father, Rachel, we're all here. We'll meet you anywhere. Just name the place." I paused. This was it. The trap was set. But this time, I wasn't the prey. I was the hunter. "The coffee shop on 3rd, I said. 30 minutes. And tell Victor to bring the checkbook. He's going to need it for his own coffee." I hung up. I grabbed the folder Veronica had prepared, the one with the affidavit of forgery. It was time to end this. The coffee shop on 3rd Avenue was neutral territory. It was the kind of place where startup founders pitched angel investors and college students nursed lattes they couldn't afford. It smelled of roasted beans and anxiety. I walked in precisely 3 minutes late. It was a power move I'd learned from Victor. They were sitting at a corner table, a huddled mass of desperation. My mother, Evelyn, looked smaller than I remembered. The pristine, confident bank manager was gone. In her place was a woman with frayed nerves and too much foundation trying to cover the dark circles under her eyes. My dad sat next to her, staring into his black coffee as if it held the secrets of the universe. And then there was Rachel. My sister looked like she hadn't slept in a week. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she was aggressively typing on her phone, likely trying to put out a fire she didn't know how to extinguish. Victor sat at the head of the table, tapping a gold pen against the wood, a nervous tick that betrayed his composure. I didn't sit down immediately. I stood by the chair, forcing them to look up at me. "Lena?" Mom said, her voice cracking slightly. She reached out a hand, then pulled it back when she saw my expression. "Thank you for coming." I pulled the chair out and sat. I didn't take off my coat. "I have 20 minutes. Talk." "You look good," my dad mumbled, finally looking up. "Tired, but good." "Cut the small talk, Thomas," Victor snapped. He leaned forward, his eyes hard. "We have a situation, Lena, a serious one." "I know," I said calmly. "I hear Mirage Heights is turning into a mirage, literally. The bank is asking for an audit, aren't they?" Victor flinched. "Who told you that?" "It's a small town, Victor, and bankers talk, especially when they're worried about their $15 million. Rachel slammed her phone down. "This is your fault. You sabotaged the servers, the strategy files. They're all corrupted. We lost the Tech Green account yesterday because we couldn't access the campaign assets. You did that on purpose." "I didn't sabotage anything," I replied, my voice steady. "I simply built a filing system that required a competent operator. It's not my fault you don't know how to drive the car Daddy bought you." "Enough," Mom intervened. She took a deep breath, composing herself. Lena, listen. We aren't here to fight. We're here to offer a truce. We made a mistake. I admit it. Rachel wasn't ready. Rachel opened her mouth to argue, but Victor silenced her with a look. We want you back, Mom continued. Not as a subordinate. We'll make you a partner. 20% equity. You come back as COO, you fix the client relationships, you stabilize the ship. We can save this for the family. 20%? I raised an eyebrow. I built 100% of that company. It's better than nothing, Victor said, his voice lowering to a growl. Because if Heartline goes under, Lena, we all go down, including you. Here it was, the threat. Is that so? I asked. Victor pulled a document from his briefcase. It was a copy of the loan agreement. He slid it across the table. You're the guarantor, Lena. Your signature is right there. If we default, the bank comes for your personal assets. Your savings, your car, your future earnings. We are tied together on this. If you let us sink, you drown too. I looked at the document. I looked at the signature that looked exactly like mine, yet wasn't. Silence stretched across the table. I could hear the milk steamer hissing at the counter. You really think I'm stupid, don't you? I asked softly. It's not about stupidity, Victor said, smiling now, thinking he had won. It's about leverage. You help us fix this and we pay off the loan. You walk away and you face bankruptcy. It's a business decision. I reached into my bag. My hand brushed against the cool leather of the folder Veronica had prepared. You're right, Victor. It is a business decision. I pulled out the blue folder and placed it on top of his loan document. What is this? Rachel asked. Open it. Mom reached out with trembling hands and opened the folder. Inside was a single document, affidavit of forgery, notarized and stamped. Attached to it were flight records, Uber receipts, and a geolocation log from my phone provider. What? Mom whispered. That affidavit proves that on the day and time that document was signed in Denver, I was in San Francisco, I said, my voice cutting through the noise of the cafe. It also contains a forensic report from a cybersecurity firm tracing the IP address of the signature back to Victor's personal laptop. Victor's face went pale. The blood drained from his cheeks so fast I thought he might faint. That's a lie, he stammered. It's admissible evidence, I corrected him. My lawyer has the original. If I don't check in with her by 5 p.m. today to tell her we have come to an arrangement, she files this with the district attorney. That makes this wire fraud, Victor. And identity theft. That's federal prison time, for you and for Mom, since she witnessed the signature. Mom gasped, covering her mouth. Tears welled up in her eyes, real tears this time. Lena, you wouldn't. I'm your mother. And I was your daughter, I said, feeling a crack in my heart but refusing to let it show. But you didn't treat me like a daughter. You treated me like a line of credit. I stood up. The power dynamic in the room had shifted so violently it made the air heavy. Victor was slumped in his chair, defeated. Rachel looked terrified. My dad was weeping silently. Here's the counteroffer, I said, looking down at them. 1. You will sell Heartline Digital's client list to Bright North Studio for $1. 2. You will assume full liability for the loan and remove my name from all banking documents within 48 hours. 3. You will never contact me again. We can't, Rachel sobbed. If we sell the client list, Heartline is worthless. The bank will foreclose on everything. Mom will lose her house. I looked at my sister. For the first time, I didn't feel jealousy. I didn't feel anger. I just felt pity. Then I guess you better start looking for a job, Rachel. I hear Starbucks is hiring. I pulled a $20 bill from my pocket and dropped it on the table. Coffee is on me. I turned and walked out. I didn't look back to see them crumbling. I walked out into the sunlight, and for the first time in my life, the air didn't feel heavy. It felt like oxygen. But as I unlocked my car, my hands started to shake. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind the cold reality. I had just destroyed my family. I had saved myself, yes, but I had burned the bridge so thoroughly that there was nothing left but ash. I sat in the driver's seat and gripped the wheel. It's done, I whispered to myself. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Veronica. Did they take the deal? I typed back one word. Checkmate. But the game wasn't quite over. Victor was a gambler, and a cornered gambler doesn't just fold. He doubles down. As I pulled out into traffic, I noticed a black sedan pulling out behind me. It had tinted windows. It had been idling across the street when I arrived, and now it was following me. The rearview mirror is a funny thing. Objects in it are closer than they appear, but sometimes the monsters in them are exactly as close as you fear. I turned right onto Spear Boulevard, cutting across 3 lanes of traffic. The black sedan behind me did the same, ignoring the honking horns and the middle fingers of other drivers. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. This wasn't paranoia. Paranoia is thinking the world is out to get you. Reality is watching a tinted Chevy Malibu run a red light just to stay on your bumper. I checked my phone. 10% battery. Stupid, Lena, stupid. I had spent so much energy destroying my family that I forgot to charge my lifeline. I needed a public place, a police station, a fire station, anything with cameras and witnesses. But Denver traffic at 5 p.m. is a parking lot. I was trapped in the gridlock and the shark was circling. My phone buzzed. It wasn't a text. It was a call from an unknown number. I stared at it. The sedan was 2 cars back now. I answered, putting it on speaker. "Who is this?" "Miss Hart," a male voice said. Deep, gravelly, calm. It wasn't Victor. It wasn't my dad. "You're driving a little erratic. You might hurt someone." "Who are you?" I demanded, gripping the wheel. "If you don't back off, I'm calling 911. "No police," the voice said. "We just need to talk about the collateral." "I told Victor," I shouted, my voice trembling. "The loan is his problem. I have an affidavit. The signature is forged." "We're not the bank, Miss Hart. We don't care about affidavits. We care about the cash Victor owes us. He said you have the keys to the kingdom. He said you have the client list." My blood ran cold. Victor hadn't just borrowed from a bank. The $15 million from the Phoenix Mirage project wasn't just corporate financing. He had gone to private lenders, loan sharks, the kind of people who didn't sue you. They broke your legs. And when the walls closed in on him at the coffee shop, Victor had done the only thing he knew how to do. He pointed the finger at me. He told them I had the money. "He lied to you," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't have the money. I walked away." "That's not what he said. Pull over, Lena. Let's look at that laptop in your bag. Maybe we can work something out." Traffic started to move. I saw an opening, an off-ramp leading to a busy shopping center. "I'm not pulling over," I said. I slammed on the gas. My old Honda Civic groaned as I swerved into the exit lane at the last second, cutting off a delivery truck. The horn blast was deafening. I didn't look back. I drove through the parking lot of the Cherry Creek Mall, weaving through the rows of cars, adrenaline making my vision tunnel. I didn't stop until I was on the other side of the complex, parked between 2 massive SUVs. I slouched down in my seat, trying to make myself invisible. I watched the entrance. 1 minute passed. 2. The black sedan didn't appear. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I was safe, for now. But I couldn't go home. They knew my address. They knew my car. I needed a ghost. Someone who wasn't connected to Heartline, wasn't connected to my family, and definitely wasn't on Victor's radar. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name. Eli. We had met at a climate tech conference 6 months ago. He was a software engineer, quiet, brilliant, with kind eyes that seemed to see right through my corporate armor. We had gone on 3 dates. I had ghosted him when the family drama started, too ashamed to drag him into the mess. I hit call. "Lena?" He sounded surprised. "Is everything okay? I haven't heard from you in—" "Eli," I interrupted, my voice finally breaking. "I need help. Can I come over?" Eli's apartment was in Low-High on the 2nd floor of a secure building. When he opened the door, I must have looked like a wreck. My hair was wild, my eyes were red, and I was clutching my laptop bag like it contained nuclear codes. He didn't ask questions. He just pulled me into a hug. He smelled like cedar and clean laundry, the scent of a normal life I wasn't sure I could ever have again. I sat on his couch, shaking while he made tea. I told him everything. Not the polished version I gave the clients, not the legal version I gave the lawyer, the ugly version, the debt, the forgery, the man in the black car. "So," Eli said slowly, sitting on the coffee table in front of me, "your stepfather owes money to the mob, and he told them you're the piggy bank?" "Basically." Eli rubbed his face. "Okay. You can't stay at your place. You stay here. My building has key fob access and cameras on every floor. My car is in a secure garage. You're safe." I can't put you in danger, Eli. You're not, he said firmly. I work in cybersecurity, Lena. If they want to find us digitally, good luck. If they want to find us physically, they have to get past 2 steel doors and a very angry building manager named Mrs. Higgins. For the first time that day, I smiled. It was a weak, watery thing, but it was real. What do? I whispered. I have the legal win. I checkmated them, but they flipped the board. You stop playing their game, Eli said. Victor used you as a shield. It's time to step out from behind it and let him take the arrow. He handed me my phone. Call the guy back, Eli said. What, are you crazy? Call him. Tell him the truth. Tell him exactly where Victor is. I looked at the phone. It felt heavy. That could get Victor killed, I said. Eli looked at me, his eyes serious. Victor tried to get you killed, Lena. Or at least hurt. He sent a shark to your car. He made a choice. Now you make yours. I thought about the years of manipulation. The "you'll work under her," the forged signature, the black sedan in my rearview mirror. I dialed the number. Miss Hart, the gravelly voice answered on the first ring. I was hoping you'd call. Did you find a parking spot? I don't have your money, I said, my voice cold and hard like steel. And I don't have the client list. It's gone. The company is empty. That's unfortunate. For you. But, I continued, I know who has the remaining liquid assets. Victor just cashed out his personal retirement account 2 days ago to hide it from the bank. He's staying at the Brown Palace Hotel, room 412. He's planning to leave for Mexico in the morning. There was a pause on the line, a long, calculating silence. Room 412? The man asked. Room 412. He's wearing a blue suit, and he looks very nervous. Thank you, Miss Hart. Drive safe. The line went dead. I dropped the phone on the couch and buried my face in my hands. I sobbed, not out of fear but out of relief and the terrible, crushing guilt of what I had just done. I had just sicked a monster on my own stepfather. Eli sat beside me, wrapping his arm around my shoulders. It's over, Lena. You didn't start the fire. You just blew it back in their direction. Outside the window, the city of Denver twinkled in the dark. Somewhere out there, in a luxury hotel room, Victor was about to get a knock on the door. I closed my eyes. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one who had to answer it. The morning after I gave Victor up, the sun rose over Denver with an insulting brightness. The sky was that piercing, impossible blue that only exists in Colorado, utterly indifferent to the fact that my life had just burned to the ground. I woke up on Eli's couch. For a second, I forgot where I was. Then the smell of coffee and the low murmur of the television brought it all rushing back. The chase, the phone call. Room 412. Eli was standing by the window, holding 2 mugs. He looked pale. You need to see this, he said, nodding toward the TV. I sat up, wrapping the blanket around me like a shield. The local news anchor was standing in front of the Brown Palace Hotel. Police tape fluttered in the wind. Prominent real estate developer Victor Sterling was found unconscious in his suite early this morning, the reporter said. Police are calling it a targeted assault. Sterling is currently in critical condition at Denver Health. Authorities also discovered a significant amount of shredded documents and cash in the room, leading to a parallel investigation into potential wire fraud. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I felt numb. The targeted assault was the message I had delivered. The wire fraud was the bomb I had planted. He's alive, I whispered. Barely, Eli said, handing me the coffee. But he's under arrest. The hospital room is guarded. And because of the evidence your lawyer submitted this morning, the FBI is already seizing his assets. And my mother? She's being questioned, but she's not in custody. I took a sip of the coffee. It was bitter. It's over. No, Eli said, sitting down next to me. The war is over, Lena. Now you have to clean up the battlefield. The next 6 months were a blur of lawyers, depositions, and dust. Heartline Digital didn't die quietly. It shrieked. With Victor's assets frozen and the truth about the loans exposed, the bank foreclosed on everything. The beautiful glass office downtown was locked up with chains. The computers, the cameras, the Herman Miller chairs, everything was tagged for auction. I went to the liquidation auction. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to see the corpse to believe it was dead. The warehouse was cold. Strangers were poking at the desks I had assembled with my own hands. I saw a competitor from a rival agency bidding on our server rack. Tragic, isn't it? A voice said beside me. I turned. It was Rachel. She looked 10 years older. She was wearing jeans and a sweater that had seen better days. No more designer suits, no more smug smiles. I heard you lost the house, I said. It wasn't an accusation, just a fact. We're renting a 2-bedroom in Aurora, she said, staring at a stack of office chairs. Mom is living with us. She doesn't talk much. She just sits by the window and cries about Victor. And Victor? 5 years, Rachel said. Plea deal. He rolled over on some bigger fish to get a reduced sentence. But he's done. We're all done. She turned to look at me. Her eyes were red. You knew, didn't you? You knew if you walked away, it would all collapse. I knew I was the load-bearing wall, I said. You guys just thought I was the wallpaper. Rachel let out a short, wet laugh. I hated you, because it always came easy to you. Easy? I felt a flash of the old anger, but it faded quickly. Rachel, I worked 18-hour days while you were posting brunch photos. It wasn't easy. It was just mine. Well, she sighed, pulling her coat tighter, it's all yours now, or none of it is. I'm bidding on something, I said. What, the cameras? No. I pointed to the corner. Leaning against the wall was a framed poster, the first big campaign I ever designed. It was dusty and cracked. That old thing? Rachel scoffed. It's the only thing in this room that has any real value. I bought it for $5. Rachel walked away without saying goodbye. I watched her go, a small figure disappearing into the gray afternoon. I realized then that I didn't need their apology. My survival was the apology. While Heartline was being dismantled, Bright North Studio was learning to walk. We moved out of the temporary space into a renovated warehouse in the Reno district. It wasn't fancy. The floors were concrete and the heating was temperamental, but the light was incredible. I had 45 employees now. Many were refugees from Heartline, but many were new faces, kids fresh out of college who wanted to change the world, not just sell widgets. One afternoon, I was sitting in my office, a space with no door, just a large communal table, when Sarah walked in. She was grinning. You're not going to believe who's on the phone, she said. Unless it's the IRS, I'm busy. It's the CMO of Aurora Tech, the national climate firm. I froze. Aurora Tech was a whale, the kind of client that changed a company's trajectory. Put him through, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I picked up the phone. This is Lena. Miss Hart, the voice was deep and professional. I'll be brief. We were looking for an agency to handle our Series B announcement. We interviewed the big guys in New York and LA, but then one of my VPs sent me a YouTube link. A link? I asked, confused. A clip from a talk you gave. Something about building a house you don't own. You didn't name names, but the story resonated. We value resilience, Miss Hart. We want people who have walked through fire and didn't burn. I looked around my office. I looked at the team brainstorming on the whiteboard. I looked at the cracked poster leaning against my wall. We don't just walk through fire, I said, smiling. We use it to light the way. Good answer. When can you fly to San Francisco? I can be there tomorrow. I hung up the phone. The office was buzzing with noise. Laughter, typing, music. It was the sound of a machine running perfectly. My phone vibrated. A text from Eli. Dinner tonight? I made tacos. I typed back, yes, but I'm buying the tequila. We're celebrating. I grabbed my bag and walked toward the door. As I passed the reception desk, I saw a letter sitting in the incoming tray. It had my mother's handwriting. I paused. My hand hovered over it. I could open it. I could read the excuses, the guilt trips, the pleas for money or forgiveness. I could let the ghost back in. Lena? Sarah asked, looking up from her desk. You okay? I looked at the letter. Then I looked at the logo on the wall. Bright North. Clean, bold, mine. I'm fine, I said. I picked up the letter and dropped it into the recycling bin without opening it. Just junk mail, I said. I walked out into the cool evening air. The sun was setting, painting the mountains in shades of violet and gold. I took a deep breath. It smelled like rain and asphalt and freedom. I got into my car, a new one paid for in cash, and drove toward the city. The rearview mirror was clear. No black sedans, no angry ghosts. Just the road ahead, stretching out as far as I was willing to go. 2 years? 730 days. That's how long it takes for a scar to turn from angry red to a quiet silvery white. I was standing backstage at the Austin Convention Center. Through the heavy velvet curtains, I could hear the hum of 5,000 people taking their seats. The air conditioning was freezing, but my hands were warm, steady. "You ready?" Eli asked. He was standing beside me, adjusting his tie. We weren't just dating anymore. We were partners in every sense of the word. He had quit his job to become the CTO of Bright North. He built the tech. I told the story. I was born ready, I teased, fixing his collar. Or at least I was forged ready. The announcer's voice boomed over the speakers. "Please welcome the founder and CEO of Bright North Studio, the woman who redefined crisis management in the digital age, Lena Hart." The applause was a physical wave. I stepped out into the blinding spotlight. I didn't talk about marketing that day. I didn't talk about KPIs or conversion rates. I looked out at the sea of faces, young founders, tired executives, ambitious students, and I told them the truth about blood equity. I told them about the night I signed a fake contract with my own family. I told them about the car chase on Spear Boulevard. I told them about the moment I realized that loyalty without boundaries is just self-destruction. "We are taught," I said into the microphone, my voice echoing through the hall, "that we are the sum of what we build, that our value is locked in our companies, our titles, our bank accounts. But that is a lie. Those things can be stolen. They can be signed away. They can be leveraged by people who claim to love you." I paused, letting the silence settle. "The real asset," I continued, "is you. It's your ability to walk into an empty room with nothing but a laptop and a grudge and build a cathedral. They can take the building. They can never take the architect." After the speech, as the crowd dispersed, I checked my phone. There was a notification from a Google alert I had set up years ago. Victor Sterling denied parole. I swiped it away without emotion. Victor was currently serving year 2 of a 5-year sentence at a low-security federal camp in Texas. He was spending his days teaching financial literacy to other inmates, irony at its finest. My mother? She was a different story. I hadn't seen her in 18 months. The last update I got was from a distant cousin. Evelyn was living in a small apartment in Phoenix, working part-time as a bank teller, the same job she had started with 40 years ago. The circle was complete. She had lost the house, the prestige, and the husband she sacrificed her daughter for. And Rachel? Rachel was the one who surprised me. 6 months ago, she sent me an email. No subject line, just a screenshot of a job offer. She had gotten a position as a junior HR coordinator at a mid-sized firm in Chicago. Below the image, she wrote, "I got this one on my own. No mom, no you, just me. It pays half of what I used to make, but I sleep better." I didn't reply. I didn't need to, but I didn't delete it either. That evening, Eli and I sat on the balcony of our hotel room, watching the Austin skyline burn orange in the sunset. We were drinking cheap beer and eating expensive room service, our little tradition. "You know," Eli said, clinking his bottle against mine, "Bright North hit $20 million in revenue today." "Did we?" I smiled, looking at the condensation on the glass. "That's nice. Just nice? It's just a number, Eli. It's paper." He laughed. "So what matters then?" I leaned back, closing my eyes, listening to the city below. What mattered wasn't the $20 million. It wasn't the applause. It wasn't even the revenge, though God knows that tasted sweet for a while. What mattered was the freedom. The freedom to answer my phone, or not. The freedom to trust the person sleeping next to me. The freedom to know that if everything burned down tomorrow, if Bright North crumbled into dust, if the economy tanked, if the world ended, I would be fine. Because I wasn't the company. I wasn't the daughter who needed to be useful to be loved. I wasn't the scapegoat. I opened my eyes and looked at the North Star just becoming visible in the twilight sky. "What matters," I said to Eli, "is that for the first time in my life, I'm the one holding the pen. If you're listening to this tape, if you're sitting in your car or your cubicle or your kitchen, feeling the walls closing in, if you feel like you're setting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, I have one question for you. What would happen if you just walked away? The fire will go out, the bridge will burn. It will be dark and it will be scary. But I promise you, the stars are brighter on the other side.